Thank you very much for those that are already joining us. We're just going to give it a minute or so for other people to join. Hopefully you can all see the screen, and we will get going as soon as possible. I hope it's nice and sunny where you are. We have unexpected sun today in Edinburgh, which I don't think any of us were expecting. So that's always lovely. Okay, well, it's just gone after 1 as well. So I think what we are going to do is we are going to just kick off and get started as well. So first of all, a huge thank you to everyone who's joined us today for the first in 3 of our webinars throughout June. So as you can see today, we are looking at Back on Track using strengths profiling. So just to get us started and to get us a little bit interactive, because one of the drawbacks about a webinar is unfortunately we can't see you, so we certainly want to hear from you if possible today. I want to pose a question to you. So according to research, only 1 in 3 people can articulate what their strengths are. So do you know yours? So I'm just about to launch a quick poll, so hopefully you will see the poll coming, and I'll ask you to answer that. Now we'll look at those as we go through and towards the end of the day, but obviously I hope what we do over the next 30 minutes is I really do hope that we manage to help you articulate that as well. So we have launched the poll, and also hopefully you can see, if you've not used Zoom before, there is a chat box as well. So we have a chat box, and it'd be lovely if you would just pop in and say a quick hello. I'm going to introduce you to the panel in a second as well, but if you say hello and maybe a little bit about where you're from as well. You can either send the chat direct to the panelist, or there is a button to do to panelists and other attendees. So if you want to use that, it means everyone else can hear you as well. Brilliant. So now our chat box is ready. I think it's time to properly kick off. So over the next 30 minutes, we will cover how we use a strengths profiling tool to get the best from our clients. In the next 2 webinars, we're going to build on today by actually introducing how to use emotional intelligence, but also finishing with something that we all think is super important at this point, and it's actually resilience. And I think a lot of us are looking at other people's resilience, but actually what we want to do in our 3rd webinar is actually help you look after your resilience as well. So a little bit of housekeeping before we go on. Obviously I've mentioned about the chat function. Kathy is going to take over our chat function. I'll introduce her in a second, but also we have a Q&A button. So hopefully you can see the Q&A button. So if you've got any questions, please do use the Q&A button for that as well. Jenny will be looking after the Q&A button, and actually if we do, we'll try and answer them live in the session, but if we don't get to your question, we will come back to you as soon as we finish as well. So Kathy, who have we got joining us so far?
We have lots of people joining us, Kirsty. We've got Chris in Glasgow, we've got Steve near Aviemore, Mike and Malvern, greetings from Robin in Glasgow, we've got Kate Ward as well, and we've got our very own Sarah Christie.
Good.
Ian from Dunblane, Leslie in Perth, and Jean in Kirkwall, Ed from Clare's, we've got Karen from Ready & Co, and we've got Lee from Anywhere Works as well. So we've got few people joining the chat.
Brilliant. So we're covering most of Scotland. That's pretty exciting as well. Good. Oh, thank you all so much for coming, and thanks for getting involved, because when you're on a webinar, you're kind of hoping that people chat back to you as well. So in case you've not met me, my name is Kirsty McWilliam. I actually founded Coaching Direct back in 2008, right at the last turbulent time I think we have seen. If I had maybe understood then that adherence was a learned behaviour of mine and rapport builder was a strength, that might have helped me understand why I moved from being an insolvency accountant in the middle of a recession to a coach, but I'll come back to that a little bit later as well. So as I said, I have 3 of my colleagues with me today. They really have been instrumental in not only preparing for these webinars, but also the free resources that we've sent out as well. So we have Kathy Thompson, who you've already heard from. Kathy is on our chat button, so a wee wave from Kathy, you should see her. We also have Jenny Dixon, so Jenny's going to be answering your questions today as well. And we have Lorna Lothian as well, and Lorna is going to help give me a little bit of chat, and she's going to share with you some of her strengths today as well, and so is Jenny if she's not too busy with your questions at that point as well. So as I said, the purpose of these webinar series really is to build on the free resources that the four of us have pulled together, that we launched shortly on our website after the COVID lockdown. We really wanted to reach out to our clients and give as much support in the forms of the tools that we've actually used over the past decade while coaching clients. We got such lovely feedback, we thought we really wanted to build on this and start to interact a little bit more with you and share tips that we hope you can use with your teams, but also for you as well. I also think that it's right to acknowledge that this is a really tough time for personal reasons and a really tough time for business as well. Whether you're furloughed at the moment, or whether you're still working but part of your team are furloughed, or whether you're still working and you're uncertain about the future, these are challenges many of us have not faced before. Resilience, which we will cover, as I said in our last webinar, is really key. But it can really be hard to be resilient all of the time. So we hope by starting with strengths today, we really can help, perhaps start to help you to turn this around and get everyone back on track as soon as possible. So as I said, today we are going to look at strengths. You can see the agenda on the slides, and it is why at the key time of change like now, focusing on strengths actually can provide the support we all need. So we'll look at what a strength is, we'll look at how to spot a strength in yourself and in your team, and we will wrap up with actually helping you start to have some strengths-based conversations as well. All in 30 minutes, and all while I try and not talk too fast, which for those who know me know that is just a challenge on a daily basis for me. So first of all, I thought we would start off with where did strengths come from? So they come from the work of positive psychologists like Martin Seligman. They've discovered that the happiest people are those that have discovered their own unique strengths. So there's a lot of research out there, and there was a study done by the Corporate Research Council who studied 19,000 employees around their drivers for performance. So what they found in formal conversations, instead of focusing on weaknesses, because if you did that, decreased performance by around 27%. If you had a strengths-based conversation instead, it led to an increase in about 37% in performance, which is huge. And I certainly know we get a lot of feedback that in your more formal conversations, it's about rectifying your weaknesses. So the Gallup study that came under that as well, it showed if leadership failed to focus on strengths, the odds of the employee engagement will only be around 9%. But actually, if we focus on strengths, it rises to a massive 73%, as you can see there. The rest of the research there shows obviously higher customer satisfaction, better productivity in teams, and better employee retention as well. There's lots of benefits of a strengths-based approach, and if anyone wants some research on specific parts of engagement, please get in touch. We can help navigate you through the plethora of strengths research there is now. So what is a strength? If only a third of us know what ours are, it could well be that we're struggling to articulate. So from the poll, we had about 26 of you are really comfortable with your strengths, you know how to articulate them. A couple though don't at all, and most of you have said kind of and not sure as well. And I think that's where we find a lot of our clients are. They kind of know what they're good at, but they're not quite sure how to actually articulate it and put it into a language. So I'm going to show you the model that we use. The model, some of you might have seen it, it's called Strengths Profile. It's an online assessment tool that delivers strengths to you. We'll come on to that a bit later, but they have 3 pillars in their model, and actually it was a real eye-opener for me when I first started to understand what was behind strengths as well. We use this tool because it's dynamic. Your strengths will change the more you use them as well, so it works really well with coaching. The first pillar is performance. I think this is what we all think we know about strengths. It's how well you perform. So it's important that we do what we do and we do it well. But the second part is energy, and I think this is the exciting part of the model for me. This is the part that I really started to understand the depths of strengths. And this is about not only how you perform, but you have to gain energy for it to be a strength. So it's something that actually gives you energy as well. And then the third part of the model is use. So actually, how often do we use them? If we don't have the opportunity to use them, they won't be strengths that are realised at the moment as well. So these are the 3 pillars. So hopefully it will start to kind of give you a bit more of a depth of what a strength is. But before we talk about the quadrants, what I wanted to do was show you, and don't get too worried if you can't see it all, these are going to be sent out to you as well. But these are the 60 strengths that we talk about when we're coaching someone as well. They're all on the screen just now. We will send you the list because it's probably quite hard for you to read them. But what we really want you to do is give you a bit of a new language around strengths. I have pulled out, so hopefully you can see these ones a little bit bigger as well, but I've pulled out 3 that are actually within my own profile to highlight to you. So I mentioned earlier about rapport builder. So this is when you establish relationships quickly and easily. And although it's a good skill from a previous role as an insolvency accountant, I generally found that people weren't too keen on carrying on with that relationship after we'd unfortunately closed down some businesses. So although it was good for that one, it was quite draining. So narrator is another one I thought I'd pull out. I think one of the things is that I love to tell stories, whether they're my stories, whether they're someone else's stories, whether they're funny, whether they're not. I really love getting a buzz out how sometimes a story can really get over a key message to someone as well. So that's something I know that I really enjoy doing. And adherence I mentioned earlier away as well. And this is about loving to follow process. So within firm rules and guidance. So while this is key for an accountant, and it was something that I did really well, or I was told I did it really well, it actually drained me, actually having to sit down and follow it to the letter law really, really drained me as well. So this is what we would call a learned behaviour. But let me take through a little bit of what I mean. So we are going to go through the quadrants. So I mentioned the quadrants, and it's to understand about the differences between the 3 pillars that I've already been talking about as well. So performance, use, and energy. So we'll think about these. So our 60 strengths are split over 4 quadrants. So your realized strengths are things you perform really well in and you love doing them. So you use them often and you get lots of energy from them. We'll tell you later on how to spot these. But if you pop down to the bottom quadrants, learned behaviours is what I touched on before with my adherence. So you also perform well at them, but they drain your energy. So people will often pass work to you based on your performance because it's high, which means you use them more, but they really don't help with that energy boat that we're trying to keep going. If we go over to weaknesses, these are things actually that you don't perform very well in and don't give you energy. So we try and use them less. And I think it's important to point out that we all have weaknesses, but the key is knowing them so then you can manage them as well. And again, if you think back to the research earlier on about not focusing on these, it very much is about being aware of them and managing them rather than trying to develop them. But the real jewel in the crown is the one at the top right-hand side. This is the unrealized strength. So you perform well in them, they give you energy, but for whatever reason, you're currently not using them as much as you could be as well. So this is what we call the untapped potential. So this is untapped potential in you, but also the untapped potential in your teams as well. So I think you've probably listened to me a little bit too much by now. So I want to kind of hand it over to you and start thinking about, okay, that's great to know the kind of theory and the context of the tool, but how do you guys, when you're at your desk, when you're at home, when you're out and about, how do you start spotting strengths? So I want us just to do a quick exercise. So using the chat box, Kathy will be there to chat back to you. I want you to share with us something that drains you. It could be filling out forms, it could be giving feedback, there may be mine, but I want to hear what yours are as well. So if you just pop in the chat box to Kathy, what's going on for you there. So if actually you ever have to be in a room with me at this point, what I would normally do is I would normally get people to talk about what drains them for 2 minutes. They tell me it feels about 2 hours. So if you can pop it in, that would be great. But just while we're doing that, I thought, Lorna, if it's okay with you, would you just share with us a little bit maybe about something that drains you?
Yeah, Kirsty, and I would say a detailed Excel spreadsheet is something that completely drains me. And as I open it up, the more rows that it has, the more tabs along the bottom, the more columns that you have to scroll through, the more drained that I feel. So it's definitely, if I have to review or update a spreadsheet, it's definitely something that I'm aware that I will procrastinate on doing. Yeah. And also I really have to try hard to focus on doing it when I've got a task to do.
Lorna knows I love a spreadsheet as well, so that's why she's laughing. Jenny, quickly, just what about you before we go to the chat box?
Yeah, I think what drains me is definitely kind of writing reports or papers. I think I get a lot of kind of self-doubt in terms of what people are, expecting, and it just, my energy just zaps when I have to do something like that. And I think it came out in my strengths profile because my weakness is actually writer. Yeah. So it was quite interesting.
Good. And we know that Lorna's probably quite good at that. So anyway, I'll not upsert that. But thanks, guys. Kathy, what's going on over in the chat box?
So, Kirsty, we have somebody says social interaction, but there's a wee ha-ha there. Prolonged meetings, form filling, appraisal forms are very draining too. IT that doesn't work, difficult conversations with team members, the CD player and TV wiring. Meetings which are process and not imagination or innovation. Lots of drainers here. Attendance at or in lots of meetings, never ending to-do lists. Writing and reviewing presentations, writing emails that will be viewed by a large number of people.
So we've got a lot going on there, Kathy, and actually if we think back to if these are maybe our weaknesses, we do try and dial them down. So whoever was social interaction, lockdown is probably going really well for you, so well done. But that's good, and you know, we don't want to focus on these too much, but it's important to understand the energy side of it. So if I pop onto something a little bit more positive, just think about a time and pop it in the chat box now about something you do that you love to do. Perhaps it's something someone, you know, has maybe just shared that drains them, and you think, gosh, that's not me at all. I love doing that. So I'll come back to you, Lorna. What do you love doing?
So from my strengths profile, Kirsty, the thing that came out as my top strength is writer. And it is actually something that I love to do. So opposite to you, Jenny. And I just love the creative process of it, putting the words together, something that needs to, you know, describing the detail of something or something that I need to communicate. And actually sometimes it's something that I need to do. So it really helps me to write down and describe my thoughts or feelings about something as well. So.
Brilliant. Good. So everyone will be understanding in our team who's the writer. It's not Jenny or I. Jenny, what about you? Have you got anything to add about what you love?
Yeah, I think the thing is I love being organised. So I love completing things ahead of task, of the deadline, and I love having lists and completing them. And again, it came out my strengths that organiser and planner were kind of my top ones, which obviously it wasn't a surprise, but it kind of backs up my thinking.
Absolutely. Good. Right, and Kathy, what's going on over in the chat box? Have we got things people love to do?
People are loving meeting new people. They're loving giving themselves time to reflect, improving processes, developing new ideas, writing lists, problem solving, interviewing and learning about new people. And someone here loves social interaction.
Good. So again, we've got real opposites going on as well, which is good. You know, we all want to be different, and actually this is what makes up a really good team. So the next part that I want to look at, or actually I'll go back a second, sorry, I'll chat to you before I do it, is actually we want to start to think about how we start to spot strengths in ourselves firstly, but also how we can then use that knowledge to start to spot strengths within our teams, or even spot strengths within our children as well. You know, I've got two very, very different children, and it's really interesting to see how the next 10 things we talk about roll out as well. So I'm going to just share with you our next 10, our next slide, which is about how to spot strengths in yourself and in others. Now, we also are going to send out the sheet to you because we really just wanted to make sure we got through it all in 30 minutes today. So we'll send it out. But what I wanted to do was pop out 4 of them that actually I really resonate with as well. So the first one is authenticity. Hopefully you can see that on the screen. So this is doing something that makes you perhaps even feel at home, and makes you feel you belong. So where are you when you feel the most you? The energy one is you're starting to maybe understand a bit about me. This has really been a kind of insight moment for me a few years ago when we started this tool. You know, it's about the energy. You know, when are you buzzing? When are you in your flow? And sometimes we don't catch ourselves till the end of it, and we can reflect back and go, wow, time flew there. Actually, that was something that I really got a lot of energy from. One at the bottom I thought I'd pull out was actually motivation. Do you do anything just for the love of it? So back in my kind of last paid employment back in PwC, I actually took on a people responsibility into my role, and actually we didn't have much time, and the director I worked for challenged me around it and said, I don't think you've got time to do this, because we worked very much on chargeable hours. You know, our time was recorded to 6 minutes. You know, it still is in professional services, which can be a challenge, I know, but I loved taking the time out to have proper conversations. I'd already started my coach training within PwC, And I realised that I actually got so much energy back from this as well. So for me, I was really motivated to do it. I would have gone the extra mile to make sure I could keep that within my role. And then the last one that I want to pop out, for those of you that do to-do lists, what jumps to the top? What sometimes do you actually write down and tick off because you've already done? And these are the things that are your strengths. Also, when we're starting to pull it out into the wider teams that you work for, who are the guys that put up their hand for certain tasks? If people are volunteering, you can tell that that's something they want to be engaged in. So I want just to push it back to you guys just for a minute, and I want you to think about the last time you were in your flow. Perhaps the last time that you felt that you really belonged and what you were doing was really you. When you were so motivated that time flew by. I want you to start thinking about what was it that you were actually doing. Can you actually name what you were doing? And then I want you to start thinking about, can you put a strength to that as well? So I'm going to ask you to pop your thoughts back to Kathy in the chat box again. And it's really just what it was you were doing. And can you name that strength? So Lorna, I'll come to you again if that's all right. What would you say are the things that you do and then the strength behind it?
Yeah, so if I think of the writer as my top strength in terms of how I'm feeling when I'm doing that, something that's definitely easier for me to do. It's definitely something I feel energized around doing, and very aware that I can get lost in doing it, right? That thing where you just get absorbed in doing it and you're not aware of time. So all of those things are involved when I'm writing something, for sure, Kirsty.
Good, brilliant. How does it feel when you're in that, Lorna?
Yeah, you definitely feel the energy and that absorption and that that you're just not aware of anything else, and so you can lose track of time, for sure.
Okay, that feeling of being absorbed, it's really nice. Thanks, Lorna. Jenny, how about you?
Yeah, I think for me it's when I'm kind of speaking with somebody, so whether it's face to face or now kind of online, I get very absorbed in the kind of moment. And I kind of love kind of finding out about people and kind of what's going on. So I think it's probably the opposite of my not being comfortable writing communication, but much more on the kind of verbal communication side.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jenny. Kathy, have we got anyone managing to ID their strengths in the chat box?
Absolutely, we've got lots of creativity, a key strength, weaving class and cool Canva graphics as well, being creativity development programs, like being busy, planning exercises, getting something down on paper, helping someone, listening as well. Lots coming in. Exercising, I would absolutely agree with that one. Training people, sharing knowledge and giving back.
Brilliant, thank you. And it's so different for everyone, and I think this is what the real strength is within looking at ourselves and reflecting on actually where do we perform well, where do we get energy, and how often are we using that as well. So in this next slide, it'll come out to you as well. It is really just a slide to kind of highlight to you about some of the behaviours that you might experience yourself when you're in your weaknesses or when you're in your strengths as well. But it's also quite a good key one to start looking out for in your teams as well. You know, are they a bit anxious or drained? What's kind of going on there? What's happening? Are they shorter responses? Are there tasks that aren't coming back? And then the converse side of that is obviously they're quick to learn, they're volunteering, they're passionate and focused as well. So these are the kind of behaviours that we look out for as well. But if we think to move this on now, you know, at any time of change, not just exactly this massive change that we're all going through just now, we have to believe that there's always opportunities as well. And I think a great way for my team as coaches to get our client back on track is to use strengths-based approaches, strengths-based questioning, to really help pull them from this more negative conversation into a more positive conversation. Obviously, we use the strengths profiling tool, but we also have a model to share with you to have some conversations with your team as well. So for you guys as maybe people managers, It's about finding those opportunities to really start to have strengths-based conversation. And back to these unrealised strengths that we've talked about, it's about untapping all of that potential that hopefully your team have and they've maybe not had the chance to show before. When we look at the global reporting from the Strengths Profile tools, we've seen a change of the top strengths in the past 2 months. We've seen growth and innovation come right into the top realised strengths for the first time. And I think that's really amazing. So even in these turbulent times, people are actually starting to use something that perhaps was their unrealised strengths before, but they've just never had to as well. So that's the kind of thing we're trying to find in ourselves and also in our teams. So hopefully you've become a little bit of a kind of ninja at strength spotting now, but we want to take this a little bit further, and as I said before, share with you a simple model to help support the more formal conversations that we talked about at the beginning. If you remember, the Corporate Leadership Council research talked about formal conversations. So it's about having these conversations so you can increase your performance and hopefully start to move away from that more negative kind of weakness side as well. So we have a strength shield that hopefully will help you have these conversations. It really is just a bit of a quick guide, or it's kind of our quick guide for you to have a really basic strengths conversation using a bit of a coaching approach and using some coaching questions as well. So hopefully you've noticed it's in the same format as the 4 quadrants that we spoke about earlier. And hopefully what you can do is guide them through this as well. The way we would do it is you would start with their realised strengths. So start up on the top quadrant on the left-hand side and ask them, what do you love doing? And then one of my favourite questions is ask them, what do you want to be known for? Because I think this takes the thinking to a different level as well. And I'm going to ask you to start thinking about, and I'm going to ask you to start popping in the chat box in a couple of minutes. What do you want to be known for? You know, actually for me, when I think about the time that I'm in just now, and we did this right at the beginning as a team, I really want to be known that I've done my best. I want to get to the end of this and be able to look back and go, I've done my best through this period of time. I want to be known for that. So it might not always be perfect and I don't know what's going to go ahead, but as long as I can come back and be known for doing my best, that'll be good enough for me. So have a think about that yourself as we're doing it. But then I want to jump down to the learned behaviours, which are the bottom left-hand quadrant. And as I said before, just because someone performs well, it doesn't mean it gives them energy. So it's the key for you guys watching that as people managers as well. It's not about stopping to use our learned behaviours, because actually we should be really proud of them. They're things that we can do very well, but I wonder what someone's role would look like if you even dialed it back about 10%. So you want to say, well, what is it you do well, but you might want to do less of moving forward. And then we jump over to the weaknesses on the other side. And this is just about asking them where they need support. I also think by having this conversation, it's about putting a placer out there that we all need support and we're not all good at everything, and making it okay that we all do have weaknesses. It's not about improving them or working on them. It's actually much more about managing them and supporting them where we can. But lastly, if we go up to the top right-hand side, as I've said a few times, these really are the jewel in the crown questions. These are our unrealised strengths. So this is the untapped potential that I've talked about, that you've got sitting in yourself and sitting in your teams right now. So this is the opportunity. This is the part that we focus on first with our clients, and we talk about, imagine if we could all dial up our unrealised strengths by, say, only 10%. So dial down the learned behaviours and dial up the unrealised strengths, and think about the change that that would have in terms of engagement as well. So I did say a minute ago that I was going to ask you to share in the chat box about what you want to be known for, what you would love to be known for. And I am just going to quickly ask Lorna before we go to the chat function to give you time to do it. But Lorna, what about you? What would you love to be known for?
During this time, Kirsty, that I supported other people. So I think we're all going through this pandemic together, but I think we are all experiencing it differently and got different challenges depending on our own situations. So really using emotional awareness came out as one of my strengths, and just using that to try and tap into when other people might be feeling a bit low or needing a bit more support or encouragement.
Brilliant, great. And Kathy, we're going to come at the chat box now, because I'm just aware that we're getting up to half past as well. What have we got going on in the chat box?
Yeah, similar to what Lorna said, you know, support and change of behaviour, supporting people, helping people to be successful, being supportive, honesty, realistic, and being not political. Would love to be known for courage and compassion, and supportive, empathetic team leader. Supportive, understanding, and honest as well. Supporting employees through this time. So lots of support.
Lots of support. What about you, Jenny? What would you want to
I
finish
think for
on?
me, it's very similar. I think it's wanting to make sure that I'm kind of achieving what I'm doing at this time, and kind of thinking outside the box. And that kind of came into some of my kind of learned behaviors that I can the unrealized one is the kind of persistence, and kind of really trying to utilize that a bit more at the moment.
Brilliant. Good. So hopefully that's given you a couple of questions and understanding about what the different strengths might be, whether they're realised, whether they're a learnt behaviour, whether they are a weakness, or whether it's these jewels in the crowns and the unrealised strengths as well. So thank you very much for your time today. There's obviously the option to do Q&As. I'm not sure how many Jenny's had, but please do pop your Q&A down there as well, and we can kind of stay on and look at them if you pop them in there just now as well. We do have a poll that I will launch in a second as well once I get my tech up to speed. I think I can share the ones from there. So I could share these ones and then I'll stop sharing them. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll go back to the polls later on. We might not do that. But just to finish off and say just a huge thank you for your time today. We really hope that you've taken tips for your team, but we really hope you've taken tips for yourself as well. Because as I said at the beginning, we spend so much time supporting, and we can hear how much we all want to be massive supporters, but we really want to try and take some time for ourselves as well. We therefore hope to see you next week when we talk about emotional intelligence and helping you with a language of emotional intelligence as well, but how to harness some of the EI skills that we see in times of change as well. So we really would love to speak with you more on the work we do around strengths coaching, especially our new kind of one-off coaching session called Back on Track, which uses the strengths profile tool as well. It's been really successful, not only on a one-to-one basis, we've done it on a one-to-one basis and then brought people together online to do a team strengths workshop as well. So that's been challenging us all, and we're finding we're loving the online training, which has been very handy at these times. But please do get in touch if you want to know even more about your strengths or your team strengths or any of the research that we mentioned earlier as well. We hope we really can keep supporting you in the next couple of webinars as well. We will record this, or we have recorded this, and we will pop out the recording to you with all the handouts that we've talked about today as well. We would also love some feedback, so do let me know anything that you want to see more of, or anything that I was going to do the poll at the end, but I don't seem to be able to do it. So maybe for next time I need to work on the polls. The woman said it was really easy to do it, but obviously not. I'm just going to delete that just now. So we are just going to do some quick Q&As if we've got any, but for anyone that needs to run off, because that is just after past now, sorry, a couple of minutes. Thank you so much. It really is lovely for us to be able to connect with you, not just through the free resources on the webinar, but online as well. So thank you from myself, from Jenny, from Kathy, and from Lorna for joining us today. Thank you very, very much. So Jenny, is there any Q&As you want me to answer live, or?
Yeah, there's two questions that have come in. Is there an online survey that clients can use to get a strengths profile, and does this cost to use?
Yeah, it does. It's actually, we always wrap it into all of our coaching ones as well. But is it Steve? Yeah, Steve, give me a quick email. It's kirsty@coachingdirectuk.com, and I can send you the profiles and you can have a look at what they look like as well, so you can see them. But yeah, no, there is a cost, but it's always wrapped up. It's not a huge one of the psychometrics ones, so it's great. Fab.
Okay, and we have one from Ian. He missed the first few minutes, just wondering about sending slides and documents.
Absolutely, we're going to send all the slides, we're going to send the recording, and actually what I'll do is I'll send out a report, Steve, I'll send out a sample report so you can see what it looks like as well. Fab, any more, Jenny?
One more from Michael. How accurate do the strengths surveys tend to be? I was a little surprised by some of my results.
Oh, brilliant. So good, so you've had your strengths as well. Absolutely, we know, I mean, it's a self-reporting tool, so you'll go through, I think it's about 180 questions, and you'll see they kind of ask you the same thing sometimes differently, whether it's performance, use, or energy that they're asking you about as well. So they tend to be, but it's also situational. So if you think back to the pillars and you think back to the use part, then actually it might be, for example, so some people can, you know, there's a strength on listener, and when we do it in coach training, some people are like, what do you mean that it's a learned behaviour or a weakness? And it means that actually you should just use it wisely. So rather than you not be good at it, it just means if you do it too much, or you do it in a formal way rather than an informal way. So it's contextual, but it's a self-reporting tool, and it might just be that it's situational if you're not getting it. But we'd love to go over your report with you as well, so ping it on to us and we'll have a look. Fab. Is that all done, Jenny?
Yeah, that's all the questions.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you so much for everyone. It's been lovely maybe to spend some time with you on a unusually sunny day this week for Edinburgh. Brilliant. Thank you very much, and we'll hopefully see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.